The year was 2147 when the first signal arrived at Earth. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. The message appeared in the form of a complex mathematical pattern, a sequence that seemed to pulse with energy far beyond anything humans could comprehend. It was as though the universe itself was sending a warning from the depths of space. The scientists at Earth's leading research stations worked tirelessly to decode it. But as the days passed, the answer was always the same. The message was unmistakably clear. A fleet was coming, a massive fleet whose ships dwarfed any vessel humanity had ever built in both size and power. It wasn't long before Earth's leaders convened at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The world had barely begun to understand the implications of the message when the first signs of the approaching fleet became visible. A fleet so large that it could be seen with the naked eye from the surface of the Earth itself, a fleet that filled the sky with ominous shadow ships. The size of cities hovered silently in orbit, as though waiting for something humanity could not fathom in the cold silence of space. The alien fleet arrived in full view on a crisp morning, a strange reddish glow lighting up the sky. As if the dawn had turned against Earth, the ships hovered in the upper atmosphere, motionless, and yet unmistakably menacing. Their massive silhouettes blocked out the sun, casting a long dark shadow across the globe, as Earth held its breath, awaiting the arrival of beings from another world. The first to speak was the alien leader Xarth, a creature of towering proportions with scales that shimmered like polished metal and eyes that seemed to burn with an otherworldly light. Speaking in a language that humans could not understand, his words were translated swiftly through the universal translator, a device that would allow for the first real communication between the two species. He addressed humanity with a message that was cold and indifferent. "We have come to assess your world and determine if you are worthy of joining the greater galactic empire. Our fleet outmatches yours in every conceivable way. Your technology is primitive, and your resources are ripe for the taking. You will submit to our rule or face annihilation." The statement was simple but heavy in its finality. The aliens made no attempt at diplomacy or explanation. Their intentions were clear. Humanity had been judged unworthy of autonomy. The aliens saw Earth as nothing more than a resource to be exploited, a world that would be absorbed into a vast empire that stretched across the stars. In the face of such overwhelming odds, Earth's leaders were left with little choice but to engage in negotiation. Though it was clear that the aliens had little interest in peaceful discourse, they were determined to test humanity's resolve. The United Nations sent their top diplomats to engage with the alien leaders, hoping to buy time to prepare for what seemed inevitable. But as the days turned into weeks, it became increasingly clear that the aliens had underestimated one thing: humanity's refusal to accept defeat. Humanity had been pushed to the brink before, and always found a way to survive. Now was no different. No matter how dire the situation, the people of Earth would not submit easily. They would fight for their planet, for their future, and for the right to remain free in the face of an empire that sought to crush them. The aliens may have thought they knew humanity, but they had not counted on what would come next: a weapon that would change everything. As the days passed, and humanity tried to find a way to negotiate or reason with the aliens, the tension on Earth grew palpable. The governments of the world realized the reality of the situation. Earth was no longer safe from an advanced species that saw it as little more than a resource to be harvested. They had no choice but to prepare for the worst. The military leaders of every nation began coordinating in secret, pooling their knowledge and resources to find a way to defend the planet from what seemed like an unstoppable force. There were no illusions about the strength of the alien fleet. Their ships were equipped with weapons that could obliterate entire cities in a single blast. Their technology was centuries, if not millennia, ahead of anything Earth had ever developed. The warships they commanded were sleek and deadly, with energy shields and weapons capable of reducing Earth's defenses to ash. The only advantage humanity had was its sheer unpredictability and determination that had carried them through countless challenges in the past. At the heart of Earth's defense strategy was a secret project that had been under development for decades, hidden deep underground in a network of government facilities. The project was known only to a select few, and its goal was to develop a weapon that could turn the tide in the event of an alien invasion. It was humanity's last hope, a weapon unlike anything the universe had ever seen. The project had been started in response to earlier fears that Earth might one day face an extraterrestrial threat. The weapon was based on a simple yet powerful idea, using advanced technology to launch projectiles at speeds that exceeded the limits of human comprehension. The engineers had long struggled with the concept of harnessing the energy needed to accelerate objects to such high velocities. But after years of research, they had succeeded. What they had built was a railgun, a weapon that used electromagnetic forces to launch projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The railgun was a massive machine capable of launching projectiles that weighed hundreds of kilograms at such speeds that they could pierce through almost any material. The scientists were certain that no alien ship would be able to withstand such an impact. They called it the ultimate weapon, and its power was enough to make even the alien invaders rethink their assumptions about humanity. As Earth's leaders debated their next move, there was little faith in diplomacy or any hope of negotiating with a species that had already decided humanity's fate. The world's leaders understood that time was running out, and the only way to stand a chance was to use the railgun. Humanity's secret weapon would have to be tested against the alien fleet. The test was set to take place in the remote desert wastelands of Nevada, where the first railgun prototype had been built under the watchful eyes of military officials and top scientists. The pressure was immense as the first shots were prepared to be fired. No one knew for certain if the railgun would work, but there was no other option. The fate of the planet was now in the hands of a weapon that was as revolutionary as it was untested. As the railgun powered up, and the countdown began, Earth held its collective breath. The weight of the moment felt like an eternity. No one knew if humanity had the power to overcome the might of the alien fleet, but they had no choice but to try. The first shot would be humanity's statement to the universe. They were not helpless, they were not weak, and they would not submit without a fight. The silence in the control room was suffocating as the engineers and military officials watched the countdown on the digital display. The railgun was charged, its systems hummed with immense power, but the air was thick with uncertainty. No one knew for sure if the weapon would actually work, if it would live up to the promises that had been whispered in secret corridors for years, or if it would be nothing more than a failed experiment, one that could not protect Earth from the vast alien fleet that loomed just outside the atmosphere. The target was set, an enormous metal slab designed to simulate the hull of an alien ship, a stationary target to test the power and precision of the railgun's fire. The engineers had recalculated every angle, every variable, until there was no more room for error. The entire world seemed to hold its breath as the numbers ticked down to zero. The atmosphere felt charged with energy, as though the planet itself was waiting for the weapon to discharge. The signal to fire came at last. The massive electrical surge sent a jolt through the control room. The railgun fired with a blinding flash of light. The shot was instantaneous. The projectile was so fast that the human eye could not fully register its movement. Within a fraction of a second, the tungsten slug left the barrel and shot into the atmosphere at nearly a quarter of the speed of light. The result was almost too fast to comprehend. The projectile struck the target with a force that shook the ground itself. The massive slab of metal was obliterated in an instant. The force of the impact created a shockwave that rippled through the surrounding desert. The explosion was so violent that it was visible from hundreds of miles away. The shockwave felt like a minor earthquake, rattling nearby buildings and equipment. The sheer scale of the destruction was unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. The scientists stared at the data screens, their eyes wide with disbelief. The target had been pulverized. The projectile had gone through it as though it was paper, disintegrating into dust. The power of the railgun had exceeded all expectations. It was a weapon that could tear through anything, no matter how heavily armored or shielded it was. Humanity had just unlocked a force of unimaginable potential. In the war rooms around the world, the implications were immediately understood. The railgun was not just a test weapon, it was a game changer. Humanity had just developed the means to strike at the alien fleet with a power that could overwhelm their defenses. There was no turning back now. The tide of battle had already begun to shift in humanity's favor, and the aliens would soon learn that the people of Earth were not as helpless as they had once believed. But there was no time to celebrate. The test had proven that humanity's technology could match the alien strength, But the battle was far from over. The aliens would soon realize the true potential of the weapon that had just been unleashed upon them, and they would not take kindly to being outmatched. The alien fleet was still hovering in orbit, waiting for humanity to submit to their demands, and the stage was now set for the most significant battle in human history, one that would determine whether Earth would remain free or be crushed under the weight of an empire that stretched across the stars. As the railgun systems were recharged and new targets prepared for the next wave, the world watched with anticipation. Humanity had sent a message and the aliens were about to receive it. As the alien fleet remained in orbit, silently observing the chaos below, the shockwave from the railguns test fired across Earth's defenses, reverberating through the minds of humanity's leaders. They knew the stakes had escalated. The railgun's success was no longer a simple experiment. It had proven that humanity could strike back with force. But the aliens would not back down so easily. The world's defense systems were on high alert, but they knew the true test was still ahead. Earth had sent a message. But now it was time for the alien forces to respond, and no one could predict what that response might entail. The railgun had done its job, leaving a crater in the desert and a ripple in the alien fleet's calculated arrogance. Yet it was still just one shot, one test. The stakes would grow with every subsequent action taken. The next step had to be more coordinated, more decisive. Humanity's military commanders and top engineers knew the truth. This was just the beginning. In secret military facilities scattered around the globe, preparations for full-scale combat began. Satellite systems were reactivated, global communications encrypted, and fighter jets began flying in low formations, prepared to combat the alien forces above. But it wasn't just the railgun that had sparked the world's hope. Humanity's strength wasn't just in its weapons, but in its adaptability, its sheer resolve to fight against impossible odds. And now, Earth's ingenuity would shine once more. What had seemed like an untestable and risky technology now revealed its full potential. The first railgun shot had not been a fluke. It was only the beginning of a devastating weapon system that would be deployed across the globe. Multiple railguns, designed for different ranges and targets, were now in place, their barrels aimed at the sky, ready for the next strike. As global defense forces continued to coordinate, a second railgun prototype was prepped, this one located on a space station in orbit around Earth. It was designed to fire at even greater distances, capable of striking at alien ships far above the planet. The engineers worked tirelessly, fine-tuning the system to ensure it was as effective as the first. They knew they could no longer afford to wait. If humanity was going to survive this, it had to act swiftly, decisively, and without hesitation. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was not idle. As their commanders monitored the situation, they began to regroup and formulate a plan. They had underestimated humanity. That much was clear, but they were not about to let one failed experiment dictate their actions. The alien ships, massive and hulking in size, began to shift formation. Smaller strike ships detached from the main fleet, descending to Earth's atmosphere with remarkable speed. Their energy shields flickered into life as they prepared for an assault, confident that they could crush humanity's pathetic attempts at defense. What they did not expect was the speed with which Earth's military responded. As the alien strike ships approached, they were met by a barrage of railgun fire from every corner of the planet. The Earth-based railguns fired in synchronized waves, piercing the alien ship shields and causing massive explosions. The small alien ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but they were slow and clumsy compared to the speed and precision of the human weapons. One by one, the alien ships were struck, torn apart in midair as the railgun projectiles smashed through their hulls, reducing them to smoldering wreckage. The alien fleet above Earth, watching in disbelief as their forces were decimated by the power of human technology, now realized the truth. Earth was no longer a helpless, primitive species. Humanity had just proven that it could not only survive but fight back with devastating force. Earth was fighting not just for survival, but for its very place in the universe. As the battle raged on, A silent realization spread across the world. Humanity had just become the greatest force the galaxy had ever seen. The alien fleet, still reeling from the devastating railgun strikes, began to retreat to the farthest reaches of Earth's orbit. But their retreat was not born from fear. Instead, it was the quiet before a storm, a regrouping, a recalibration. The alien commanders, furious and shaken by the loss of their strike ships, began formulating their next move. The defeat had been humiliating, a shock to their centuries of superiority. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price for that mistake. In the war rooms aboard their flagship, Commander Xarth stood, brooding over the data gathered from their failed attack. His race, the Thrixians, had conquered dozens of worlds, and never had they encountered a species capable of striking back with such lethal force. He had long considered humanity a primitive species, one not worthy of their attention. But this was different. The humans had an unyielding spirit, a capacity for ingenuity and relentless determination that no other species had demonstrated. For the first time in his long life, Xarth found himself questioning the superiority of his race. Despite the damage the railguns had inflicted, the Thrixians were far from defeated. They had technology far beyond human comprehension, and their weapons were far more powerful than anything Earth had at its disposal. Xarth's pride, however, would not allow for another defeat. This would not be the end. While his fleet retreated to a safe distance, the Thrixian commanders began to deploy their trump card, a vast array of energy-based weapons designed to cripple Earth's defenses. With energy beams that could melt mountains and shields that could repel anything short of a direct planetary bombardment, the aliens prepared for a full-scale offensive that would end humanity's brief rebellion once and for all. Back on Earth, the world's leaders had a moment to breathe. The initial shock of the alien assault had passed, and humanity now had the upper hand. But they knew that victory was still far from guaranteed. The railguns had proven themselves as humanity's greatest weapon, but the Thrixians were adapting. They were planning something larger, something far more destructive. A council of the world's top military minds, scientists, and strategists gathered to discuss the next steps. The railguns had done wonders, but they would not be enough to hold off the alien armada forever. As brilliant as humanity's technological breakthroughs had been, it was clear that they needed more than just brute force to defeat the Thrixians. They needed innovation, something that would catch the aliens off guard once again. In the chaos of those discussions, one idea began to take shape: a multi-layered defense strategy that would utilize humanity's strengths in creativity, resourcefulness, and quick thinking. The engineers quickly adapted the railgun technology for mobile use, placing smaller railguns on aircraft, space stations, and even naval ships. These new mobile platforms would be able to strike the Thrixian ships from multiple angles, keeping them on the defensive at all times. In the meantime, the military began to develop a new type of missile, one that was fast enough to evade the Thrixians' energy shields. By combining railgun technology with more advanced propulsion systems, they could launch projectiles that would circumvent the alien defenses, striking at their weak points before they even had a chance to react. The next move was clear. Earth would need to go on the offensive. A coordinated strike force of railgun-equipped ships, fighters, and satellite-based platforms would launch a surprise attack on the Thrixian fleet, aiming to knock out their command ship, the heart of the entire operation. Meanwhile, the public was unaware of the true scale of the threat. Cities across the globe rallied together in solidarity, showing unwavering support for their military forces. The fight for humanity's future had become a global cause, and every person, from the leaders to the scientists to the everyday citizen, knew that their role in this battle would determine the fate of Earth. As the preparations continued, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. The aliens had underestimated humanity before. Now it was time for the Thrixians to learn a hard lesson. When you underestimate Earth, you make a fatal mistake. As the final preparations for humanity's counteroffensive unfolded, the air was thick with anticipation. The railguns were now integrated into a larger, more sophisticated network of Earth's military forces. The newly developed mobile railgun platforms, now fully operational, could strike the alien ships with a level of precision and unpredictability that the Thrixians could not counter. Humanity had shown that it was capable of quick adaptation, and the Thrixians' initial confidence had started to waver. However, the true turning point came when the Thrixians made their next move. They had learned from their previous mistakes and decided to escalate the war. In a bold maneuver, they deployed a massive fleet of smaller, agile drones designed to infiltrate Earth's defenses and disable key infrastructure. These drones were equipped with advanced cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to human radar systems. Their primary objective was to sabotage the railgun sites, the one weapon humanity had that could effectively harm the alien forces. The Thrixians' drones began infiltrating Earth's atmosphere, and for the first time, the planet's defenses were at risk. The main concern was not only the destruction of the railguns, but the fact that these drones were also capable of hacking into the military's communication systems. If they succeeded in crippling Earth's ability to coordinate its forces, humanity would be vulnerable to a full-scale alien bombardment. But humanity had not been idle during the Thrixians' regrouping. A small group of hackers, led by Maya, a brilliant young coder, had been working behind the scenes to prepare for this exact scenario. Maya and her team had developed an AI system capable of countering the alien drone's interference. The hackers had anticipated that the aliens would resort to electronic warfare, and now they had the tools to combat it. In a moment of intense coordination, Maya's team unleashed the countermeasures, sending a shockwave through Earth's digital networks that disrupted the drone's communication systems. The counterhack was nothing short of a stroke of genius. The alien drones, now disoriented and unable to communicate with each other, began crashing into one another and losing their cloaking ability. The humans had gained the upper hand once more, but the Thrixians, not easily deterred, quickly adapted to this setback. They sent out a new wave of drones, even more advanced, to try and break through. As the global defense forces braced for another round of combat, the railguns fired once more. This time, however, they were not only aimed at the drones, but at the alien command ships orbiting Earth. The first volley of railgun fire tore through space, striking the alien fleet with deadly precision. Massive explosions rippled through the alien ships, sending debris flying in every direction. The human forces had not just struck at the drones, but had finally begun to take the fight directly to the heart of the alien fleet. The Thrixians, witnessing their ships disintegrating in front of them, realized that they had underestimated Earth's capacity for survival. They had believed that Earth was a fragile world, its inhabitants easy to conquer. But humanity was proving them wrong. It was no longer just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of willpower, of resilience, of innovation. As the railgun fire continued, a message was sent across the world. The tide had turned. Humanity was no longer the underdog, and the alien invaders could no longer ignore the strength of Earth's resistance. The Thrixian fleet, battered and on the defensive, began to retreat once more. But this time, there would be no negotiation. There would be no truce. Humanity had sent its message to the galaxy loud and clear. Earth was a force to be reckoned with, and no alien empire, no matter how powerful, could ever crush the spirit of humankind. The final battle had only just begun, but Earth was ready. As the Thrixian fleet retreated into the void, the brief but intense silence on Earth felt like the calm before an inevitable storm. Humanity's victory, while significant, was far from complete. The alien fleet, battered but not destroyed, regrouped and plotted its next course of action. The Thrixians had tasted defeat, but their thirst for conquest remained. Earth's railguns had proven effective, but the aliens had yet to reveal their full arsenal. Humanity knew the reprieve they had earned would not last long. In the wake of the first victory, the world united in a rare moment of solidarity. Governments, once fractured by political tensions, now stood united in their singular mission: to protect Earth. The global defense network was fortified, and every corner of the planet braced for the possibility of a second, larger-scale assault. But this time, humanity would not wait passively. Earth had already shown it was capable of adapting and innovating, and now, the human race would need to outthink and outmaneuver the Thrixians at every turn. In military command centers across the world, plans for a counter-offensive were set into motion. New technologies were being developed at an unprecedented pace, with Earth's best minds working in a race against time. There was one thing that humanity knew for sure. If they were to stand a chance of defeating the Thrixians, they would need more than just the railgun. They would need to push the boundaries of what was possible, even by their own standards. Humanity's ingenuity had already turned the tide, but now it had to leap forward into a future they hadn't anticipated. The railguns had been a game changer, but they were limited by range and firepower. The focus now was on advancing propulsion technologies and creating more advanced, faster railgun projectiles capable of penetrating the increasingly sophisticated alien shields. Moreover, Earth's engineers were working on an entirely new weapon, an energy-based device capable of creating a temporary rift in the aliens' shields, rendering them vulnerable to railgun strikes. Meanwhile, Maya and her hacking team had become unsung heroes, working to track and disrupt the Thrixian fleet's communication channels. With the aliens' primary means of coordination rendered unreliable, human resistance groups around the world were launching guerrilla-style operations against Thrixian outposts, taking advantage of the technological disruption. Earth's citizens had found new resolve in the face of this existential threat, and resistance was brewing in every corner of the globe. But the aliens weren't blind to the fact that they had underestimated humanity. Zorth, now in command of the remaining Thrixian forces, was consumed by a singular obsession: the destruction of Earth. The loss of so many ships in such a humiliating defeat had caused cracks in the alien empire's command structure. Some factions within the Thrixian ranks began to question the leadership's methods. Zorth's position was increasingly precarious, and he knew that if he failed to crush humanity, it would be a stain on the Thrixian Empire's honor, a failure that could ripple through the stars, eroding their grip on the galaxy. Determined to end the war once and for all, the Thrixians unleashed a weapon of their own design, a massive quantum weapon capable of destabilizing the fabric of space-time itself. The weapon was an energy cannon, so large it could only be deployed from the heart of the Thrixian fleet. With it, they intended to render Earth's defenses useless, creating a black hole in the atmosphere that would pull the planet into its event horizon. It was a weapon of annihilation, one that would leave no survivors. As the weapon powered up, humanity's defenses were tested in a way they had never been before. The Thrixian fleet loomed large in Earth's sky, an ominous shadow blocking out the stars. Humanity's railguns were recharged, its forces steeled for the coming battle. Earth was about to face its greatest challenge yet, but the one thing humanity had learned was this: when pushed to the edge, they would fight. And they would fight with everything they had. The final confrontation was on the horizon, and Earth's resolve would be put to the ultimate test. Would the Thrixians succeed in wiping out humanity? Or would Earth's indomitable spirit prove once more that there was no force in the galaxy capable of conquering the human will? The battle for the future of the planet was about to unfold in a way that would shake the universe to its core. The quantum weapon, the Thrixians' final card, hummed ominously as it powered up. Its energy readings were off the charts, threatening to tear apart the very fabric of space-time. The Thrixian fleet was now positioned in a perfect formation, encircling Earth from all sides. The weapon's dark glow could be seen even from the surface of the planet, a signal that the invaders were preparing to unleash annihilation itself. But Earth was not without its own secrets. Behind the scenes, humanity had been working tirelessly on one last innovation, something that could turn the tide in their favor. The railguns, powerful as they were, had limitations. Earth needed something more, something to counter the Thrixians' game-changing quantum weapon. Maya, once again at the forefront of this struggle, and her team of engineers had developed a prototype weapon capable of bending the fabric of space itself, a weapon that could disrupt the quantum energy in the Thrixian weapon before it reached its full potential. It was a risky move, one that would require a level of precision never before attempted. The stakes could not have been higher. The weapon, known as the Stellar Disruptor, was humanity's last-ditch effort to prevent the collapse of their world. With barely a moment to spare, the Stellar Disruptor was deployed, its core powered by the same principles that had been used to create the Railguns, but on a scale never before attempted. The device was placed in Earth's orbit, poised to intercept the quantum weapon just as it was about to fire. "Activate the disruptor." Maya's voice rang through the command center. Her hands hovered over the console, fingers trembling as the final moments of preparation unfolded. Earth's fate rested on her shoulders, on humanity's willingness to fight for its survival. The engineers and military leaders, knowing the risks, held their collective breath. The Stellar Disruptor activated with a deafening hum, sending a surge of energy toward the heart of the Thrixian fleet. The shockwave resonated across space, distorting the very fabric of reality itself. The quantum weapon, still in its final charging phase, was struck by the interference just as it began to discharge. The result was catastrophic for the Thrixian fleet. Instead of creating a black hole, the weapon malfunctioned, its energy redirected in a chaotic cascade that tore through the alien ships. The Thrixian command ships, including Xarth's flagship, were hit first, their shields overloaded by the burst of energy. The massive vessels faltered, their once impenetrable armor cracking under the strain. Explosions rippled through the fleet as the Stellar Disruptor's energy wave continued to destabilize their systems. One by one, the Thrixian ships fell from orbit, consumed by the very weapon they had unleashed to destroy Earth. But Xarth was not finished. The commander, furious and desperate, activated a last-ditch maneuver, an emergency warp jump that would send his flagship to a distant part of the galaxy, out of reach of humanity's retaliation. In an instant, the Thrixian flagship disappeared, leaving behind only the wreckage of the fleet. The remaining Thrixian ships, realizing that their command structure had crumbled and that their weapon had failed, began to retreat, abandoning Earth's orbit. But the damage had been done. The message was clear. Humanity had not only survived, but it had defeated the invaders with their own weapons, their own ingenuity, and their unyielding will. As Earth's forces stood down, the people of the world cheered in relief. Cities erupted in celebration, with cries of victory filling the streets. The war was not over, but Earth had won a crucial battle. The Thrixians had underestimated humanity, and now they knew that Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. Humanity had proven its resilience, its ability to adapt and innovate, and its unwavering spirit in the face of seemingly impossible odds. And though the alien empire would no doubt return, Earth was ready. The fight was far from over, but humanity had found its place in the galaxy, a force to be reckoned with, and a species no empire could ever fully conquer. The universe had been put on notice. The age of humanity had only just begun.